Hello and welcome to this match review for Southampton's win away at Plymouth, winning 2-1. Obviously a great result, late goal from Che Adams. We're going to be talking about a few things that I guess annoyed me in the game, obviously about the midfield and especially the first half. The second half was a lot better, the first half not so great. Talk about a few individual things and then obviously a little bit about Plymouth. There's actually going to be somewhat analysis, very shit. But somewhat. So let's just get into it. Okay, so we're going to start off by talking about the midfield. Now, obviously, the midfield was a bit of a mess, especially in that first half. Obviously, Smallbone's out for... I don't know how long he actually is out for, but he's obviously out for this game. Alcaraz picked up a knock. Obviously, Ward-Prowse and Lavia's gone. Very, very stripped the midfield. So the midfield was sort of a 4-2-3-1 with Adam Armstrong sort of being the 10. With Shea Charles' debut at defensive mid and Stuart Armstrong, who played last week, obviously, in midfield. And the dynamic was awful, especially in that first half. Shocking. It was really, really bad. We really struggled to break through their lines and create chances. In the second half, obviously, it was a lot different. Obviously, sort of Russell Martin getting in there and getting the instructions to make it fit better. But first half was very poor. We're going to talk through a few of the reasons. And we're going to talk about Shea Charles first. So, obviously, there's been a lot of praise. I think he won man of the match. There's been a lot of praise. I've seen everyone going, fantastic. And in my opinion, he wasn't great. In the first half. Second half was fine. I thought he was good in the second half. First half was a bit all over the place. I'm going to explain to you why. But we're going to start with Shea Charles sort of over-aggressive at times. When you're in and around the box, it's understandable to be more aggressive, right? But when the ball was in their half and they were attempting to sort of, slowly build an attack or counter fast, he instantly ran and tried to win possession instantly when there was no chance to win it. And that sort of put us on the back pedal. And that's not so much, obviously it's his mistake, but he's 19. He's young. First professional start, in the men's leagues. You're going to expect sort of things like that. You're going to expect players in those crucial positions to make those sort of slight errors. And that's fine. There was another one where, off memory, I don't know if I'm going to be able to get any pictures for this. I mean, future editing team may hook us up. But there was an example that I'm thinking about right now. The ball was at the edge of the area. The Plymouth player had the ball at the edge of the area. Shea Charles is going to put pressure coming across goal and just completely dives in. When he wasn't even shaping to shoot, wasn't shaping to do anything. And then he sort of kicked himself out of the game, right? And it's those sort of things to have that sort of composure to know to not have to dive in, right? To just hold them up, jockey them, whatever and whatnot. So there was a few instances where Shea Charles was a little bit over-eager. And maybe that's what Russell Martin wants. Russell Martin was like, yes, I want you to, as soon as you can think you get a ball, go for it. And that's then it's not his fault, right? If you're instructing a player to do something and they do it and it doesn't work, that's on the manager. So obviously, looking out from, an outside perspective, you're not going to know the full story. It could have been Russell Martin that told him to do that sort of stuff. So, I mean, that's all I'm saying. And then not sort of just Shea Charles, but sort of the midfield itself. On defensive transitions, shocking. Again, I'm talking about the first half, right? Mostly the first half. Defensive transition was shocking. And we're seeing this quite often where, again, Norwich game, for example, it feels as if there's two passes for Norwich instantly on our back four, instantly in behind, right? And obviously that's how sort of counter-attacking works. Obviously you have a lot of possession, you're passing, you're building, and most of the time when you're in a possession-based team, the positions you're in when your teammates lose the ball are not exactly good defensively, right? Obviously, you might have like Walker Peters very inverted or very wide or whatnot. Same with Manning, and those can create gaps, right? And obviously, the work Russell Martin has done is good to this point, in my opinion. To be able to change the whole way of playing, style of play, structure, identity is massive. And obviously, there's going to be holes in that due to one not defined, not refined in terms of the exact tactics. Not every player is 100% knowing of everything in the system. Obviously, that takes time to learn, and also personnel, right? There's not been many signings. Most players have left. I mean, if we had played a midfield in that game, a Ward-Prowse, Smallbourne, Alcaraz like we did against Sheffield Wednesday, I think it would be more of a Sheffield Wednesday game where we really dominate the ball because you have the dictators, right? We had a lack of a Smallbourne, Ward-Prowse sort of player who could dictate the game. And that was the real issue for me because at times you'd have, your 2 centre-backs, you'd have 2 full-backs inverted, you'd have 2 centre-mids, and then you'd have 4 up front, right? And there was no linking in between that. It felt like at times we had no width, and at times we had no players centrally to sort of link the play. And that's, again, personnel, I think. I think it's personnel. Adam Armstrong's not a Cam. He's not an Alcaraz. He's not a small bone who can sort of flow in between the lines and sort of pick up the ball, become an option. And I think it's the same with Stuart Armstrong. Obviously, Stuart Armstrong, again, isn't really that sort of centre mid. But he did a job, right? You know, when you're sort of chucked in the deep end, you're not naturally a 6 or an 8 or whatever it is, and you sort of have to adapt. Obviously, you're going to make positioning errors. You're going to make choices, wrong choices, and stuff like that. So that's sort of like, you can't be critical of players that's sort of playing out of position. But there was definitely a lack of insertion, right? Penetration, you say, right? There's a lack of penetration in between the lines. And I feel like in the first half we struggled completely, and I think we were very lucky. I think Plymouth had many chances to sort of create. We gave them a chance, maybe, you know, lack of positioning, and we'll get to that soon. Lack of positioning, lack of tracking back, whatnot. Because this kind of points into my next point about the midfield. Again, don't know if I'm going to get the image up, but I'll recreate it. All right. Walker Peters presses the player. I don't know who it was, maybe the left wing, was it Mumba? I think the number 2. It's quite good. He was pressing him, right? So you have your 3 defenders across the back line, right? You have Walker Peters pressing, and then you have the player on the ball, and you had 4 midfielders, I think it was 4 or 5 Plymouth players in between. So you'd have defensive line of Southampton, Plymouth attack of 5 players, and then the midfield very slow behind. That's not good enough. That is extremely not good enough. The midfield has to be tracking at least Shay Charles. You know, the defensive mid, at the end of the day, your main role as a defensive mid is to be defensive. It's in the name, believe it or not. Is to sort of protect the back 4. And that was the issue that happened constantly in the first half. In the second half, it was much better, right? And I will reiterate it. Second half was much better in basically every aspect that I'm going to bring up. But the first half had so many holes and issues, and it's not holes and issues that have only appeared in that first half. Obviously, we've seen it sometimes against Norwich, against Sheffield Wednesday, and whatnot, right? So, in that sort of situation, to have your fullback pressing a winger and having 3 defenders and 5 Plymouth attackers and midfielders right outside the box is not good enough. How are you supposed to, as a defender? I'm a former centre back / right back, you know. Nearly went pro, definitely didn't. When there's players running at you, the decisions are very difficult to make. You have to either go to them or you have to watch the runner behind. Now imagine you had 2 runners behind. You have to go to the ball, and that just drags you out, right? And that drags you out of position, and we're lucky that Plymouth didn't take advantage of those sort of 4v5 situations. And I will bring this in again, Plymouth's counterattacks were good until the final third. 2-3 passes, they're in behind. 2-3 passes, they've got it to the wingers. 2-3 passes behind, they're into the striker. And there's a few long balls that were very close to getting through. And that is our issue. We were lucky today that Plymouth weren't as clinical and didn't take as many as the opportunities that they should have. Maybe not have scored 5 or something, but at least to test Bazunu more, because Bazunu wasn't really tested as much in the first half as he really should have been, with the sort of chances we were giving them, space we were giving them, and whatnot. So we're very lucky in that regard, and I think that's similar to Norwich. Norwich was a very high-scoring game because Norwich took a lot of their chances in the counter-attack. We were lucky that Norwich didn't take all their chances, because we would have lost again. So, yeah, that's basically about that. I just thought, when the games are 11:30 at night compared to 4 a.m, I'm a bit more switched on. So I was really analysing the game a bit better with certain patterns. So, yeah, I mean, it's a bit difficult doing that at 3 a.m. I'm like, oh, I don't want to be here. But, yeah, so I figured out a few things. Now we're going to talk about some few individuals. So that was basically what I wanted to talk about, was the defensive transition mostly, and the lack of midfield cover and midfield tracking. And obviously, again, that's mostly personnel. I mean, you can't have expected the dynamics of the midfield to work when you have a striker. Stuart Armstrong is sort of a winger or a 10, and then a defensive mid. That's sort of a bit all over the place, right? So now we're going to move on to individuals. So obviously I talked about Shea Charles a little bit over eager, a little bit too composed at time. But again, 19, you can tell he's got the ability, he's got the quality. It's a matter of just the experience, right? You've got to get him into the experience, maybe learn off someone, maybe Flynn Downs comes in, he can sort of learn off him. But there definitely was times where he dictated the play well, and there was times where he gave the ball away cheaply from a bad decision or a bit too composed on the ball, and then obviously some of his positioning was a bit off. But again, youngster, first game, it's not bad for his first game. Definitely is going to improve over time. So it's a good signing. We all know it's a good signing. Shea Charles has got plenty of potential. But now moving on to next individual was Adam Armstrong. Again, first half in that sort of 10 role, unfamiliar. There was definitely not much incision. And I saw people bring up Che Adams not touching the ball. It's like, when it comes to that, as a striker, you can't touch the ball if your midfield doesn't give it to you. And that's a lot of the issue, and especially in that first half, as the midfield wasn't able to get it to him. And it was the same with Adam Armstrong. I felt like Adam Armstrong was naturally drifting too far. He wasn't central enough, and I think that's what changed in the second half. He was really happy to come in centrally, and I think that helped us break the lines a lot easier. And obviously, having a goal or whatnot, and having a bit of confidence from the goal, even though it shattered it, considering we conceded, I think it was 90 seconds later, which was absolutely hysterical. Such a Southampton thing to do. Definitely gave us more confidence. And I would say Russell Martin did do something that I really appreciated. And that's the next point. Nathan Teller. First half, it was if he didn't want to attack. Every time he had the ball on the right-hand side, pass back, pass back, pass back. Never really took on his man. You compare him to a Dozy. Every time a Dozy has the ball and has a little bit of space, he takes him on. And not every time he beats him, not every time he'll get the ball in the box, sometimes he overruns it, right? But he's attacking him, he's direct, he's putting the defender on his heels, right? He's like, okay, he's gonna attack me, right? But with Teller, I feel like there wasn't that in the first half, especially, wasn't that directness. And that's what we need from him. He's fast. He's good enough to beat a player. And I mean, he made, championship one of the players of the season, team of the season. And that's what changed in the second half. I noticed in the second half he was a lot more direct, and he got his goal from it, which is good. But I feel like if we can just get, I don't know if Teller's leaving, obviously there's Leverkusen rumours and whatnot, but I just feel like for a player like Teller, I'm surprised he's not as direct as he should be. He should be basically similar to a Nadozi sort of thing, who just attacks. And if he loses it sometimes, unlucky. But I'd say 7 out of 10 he beats his man. I mean, Adozi basically always beats his man. It's just that sort of final ball that he lacks. But it's promising, because that final ball you can work on. Beating players is something difficult to work on, right? So if you think about it, for me, I can learn how to cross a ball. Yeah, now I've got to learn how to beat players every time. Nah, that ain't me, bruv. That's difficult to do. It's a natural thing to be able to just body feint, beat someone, right? So I'm happy that he can beat players, and then obviously with the final third is something he's going to have to develop. But also with the final third, it matters about runs. It's not so much, Adozi beats his player and puts it in. There's no one there, so it's a shit cross. That's not how it works. Crossing is you put it in an area. Most of the time when you cross, you're not looking up. You're not looking up. Most of the time it's either you cross it across the goal for someone to run in, or you 45 it. Those are basically the two options, especially on the byline. That's basically it. In and around the byline, those are your two options. Unless you do look up and you're like, back post, there's 2 players open, or something like that, right? But most of the time, head down, beat a player 45. Head down, beat a player across goal. Those sort of things. So, yeah, we need better runners. And again, obviously, that sort of stuff that most likely will be improved by both signings and obviously Russell Martin getting more weeks into the team. So that was that. That's about Teller. Just wanted him to be more direct. That's really all I wanted from him. And he got his just desserts, didn't he? He got to go. But yeah, I'd say we're very lucky in this game overall. I think the first half Plymouth definitely could have hurt us a ton. And I think if we played in Norwich again, could have been 3 down at halftime, 2 down at halftime. The amount of sort of situations they had where they could have hurt us, we're very lucky by. And now moving on. And now on to the youngster, the 17-year-old. Now this is a player. Right? So when I just talked about Teller being direct, Adozi being direct, this guy, mega direct, and I love it. I absolutely love a player who's full of confidence on the wing, who's like, I'm going to beat you, I'm going to beat you, I'm going to beat you, and then does it. He does it every time. 17 years old. Wow. He is a talent. Absolute talent. To be able to beat players that easily, obviously it's the Championship, not the Premier League, obviously different, whatnot, but a 17-year-old cooking in the Championship is talent. That's absolute talent. And he was cooking as fullback. And obviously there'll be people saying he should start, he should start. I said this in my preview. You don't want to start that sort of youngster because he's too young, really. The lack of experience. He's only 17, only just turned 17 as well, I think. You don't want to overplay him. You don't want to put him in the deep end too much, right? Because if you put him in the deep end too much and he has a bad game or whatever, it could kill his confidence, right? At 17 is a very, very, very fragile age, right? Shea Charles is, I think, 19, so he's a little bit closer to that sort of, age. But a 17-year-old's very raw, very, very raw. And if he does something wrong, maybe he has a bad half, maybe starts, just has a bad game, 60 minutes of a bad game, that can really kill someone's confidence. So I think Russell Martin's definitely doing well with it, sort of 20 minutes, 25 minutes, whether we're winning or losing, brings him on. I think that's good. That's going to give him the experience and slowly get him more comfortable, and then obviously the more comfortable you am in the situation, the position, and the team, the more confident you're going to be. So I think his handling of, how do I say it? Amayo. Fuck, I don't know, man. I don't know what's happened to me. I used to be decent at pronouncing names, and now I suck. I can't do them at all. But we all know who we're talking about, the 17-year-old starlet. And I think we'll see a similar story with Dominic Ballard. Now, obviously, there's a lot of question marks about Che Adams. I don't know, I think I read this morning and I got told on stream that Che Adams to Everton 15 mil is sort of close to happening. So if Che Adams obviously goes, that makes Dominic Ballard probably our third choice behind Mara Mara, again, I say has a lot of potential because he does have that technical ability, but there's something not right there. Whether we just can't seem to fit him in any position or whether it's just his decision-making isn't the greatest. I think Dominic Ballard could use that sort of same treatment as Amo. I'm just going to say Amo because I can't fucking... I'll call it... No, if I say Sambu, like Sambu does it. Amo, right? It's sort of the same, 20 minutes, 15 minutes, 10 minutes maybe, because Dominic Ballard... he's cooking in the under-21s. He's clearly good enough to be in and around the team for the Championship. Obviously, with the injury he had in pre-season, delayed him. But I would say he needs to be sort of 10, 15 minutes here and there, sort of get him bled into the team, because if Che Adams does leave and we can't sign a striker that sort of fits us, because obviously we're not going to sign someone who doesn't fit us, right? Simple as that. Then Dominic Ballard will be very crucial to us this season. So that's about it. That's about all I want to say. Overall, I didn't see the Gillingham game, but this is the worst probably performance out of the two against Norwich and Sheffield Wednesday, but it was a different type of challenge, so you've got to accept that, and obviously the lack of midfield really affected us. So new signings, probably Finn Downs comes in, maybe another centre mid as well, because we need one. We need two centre backs, defensive mid, which maybe Finn Downs will be. I think he's a defensive mid, I think so. And then a centre mid easily, especially with Smallbone injured, Alcaraz knock. We're stripped for numbers. Unless he wants to give Aribo the centre mid role, which he'll know him better than me, so maybe he can fit that well. Attackers wise, I do want another winger. I don't know what's happening with Sulemana. I do want another winger, especially if Teller goes, and then obviously Che Adams leaving, we need a striker. So yeah, I'm happy with the direction. I'm very pleased with the developments in the style of play and the system and whatnot. I'm impressed with a lot of things as well and how quickly they've taken to it. So I'm excited for the season. I'm looking forward to it. Again, a bit lucky against Plymouth, but there's going to be games where you're not 100% at it. There's going to be games where the opposition deserves to win and you nick a win or you nick a point somehow. And those really create I was going to say title winner side, but maybe just a promotion side in this case, because those sort of games where you're not at your best but you still manage to win proves that you're good enough to sort of challenge if you do it frequently enough. So yeah, that's about it for this video. I hope you enjoyed my lack of quality analysis. I want to be able to talk like this about tactics and lack of patterns of play and whatnot. But the problem is when it's 2-3 a.m. I don't think I'm awake at all, to be honest. I think I'm half asleep watching the game, and just sort of happening as it goes. So hopefully there'll be more games that are sort of at that time, so I can sort of digest it a bit easier. But that's going to be it for this video. I hope you all enjoyed, and I'll see you boys for whatever. I do heaps of videos, so whatever the next one is. Like, subscribe, I guess, and see ya.